So, Alan, on page 173 of the book, you identify the top 10 attributes that all great leaders possess. I'm not going to put you on the spot to go through all 10, but perhaps you could share some of them and why they're so critical for a great leader to possess in order to make sure that they are constantly shifting ahead.
One of the most important ones we talked about. Every leader has vision,
Yeah.
and to see what's coming right in front. But the leaders that really are good at shifting ahead have peripheral vision. They not only see what's in front of them, they can see what's coming on the sides. They can see what's coming from behind them. And given that most organizations, as they say, get disrupted, not by their direct competitors, but by somebody they didn't even pay attention to, vision is key, but having a 360 vision, a peripheral vision, so that they're not just watching what's right in front of their nose, but they're seeing what's going on in complementary markets, different, not just in their category. If you're in the technology category, watch what's happening in the fashion category. If you're in the consumer goods category, watch what's happening in technology. If you are myopic as a leader, you are in great danger of having an organization that is going to fall behind. Another one is to trust your instincts. By the time everyone is saying you need to change, it's going to be too late. The winners in change and shifting ahead have long range sensors and see a few trends that they think is right. And ultimately, there are not going to be facts. People are not going to say, I want this yet.
Right.
It's about seeing the fringe and making a judgment call. Because the other big challenge companies have is they are so risk averse that they won't make a left turn unless they have 100 pieces of data that says go left. And by then, everyone knows it's too late. And so the best leaders trust their instinct and make a decisive decision. Say, we're going to change. We're going to make that happen. Because change is hard. Most companies are big. It's like turning an aircraft carrier.
Right.
And so you need someone to trust their instincts and be decisive to say, we're going to change and make this happen. Otherwise, people will work up and be in Marty Crane's chair. That too shall pass. And, this has been working for years, and I'll just go out and do my job the way I've always done it.
Now, inside the book, you discuss John Sexton of NYU, Bill Marriott, as we referred to a couple of times in tonight's show. What can we learn from these great leaders?
Let me start. John had peripheral vision. He looked at what was going on in education. He made a couple conclusions. One is he said NYU's strength needs to be different than others. And he decided that instead of doing what most universities do, build a campus, build some walls around it, put a piece of green in the middle, his idea was that NYU was going to be in and of the city. It had to really integrate with New York City to differentiate. And so he opened up NYU and better integrated NYU into the fabric of New York City. Now, to some extent, he got lucky. He did this at a time New York City was thriving. It was the right time, which I don't want to downplay that. A lot of success in business, as you know, is the right plan at the right time and a little bit of luck. Yeah. But he leaned into, as they say, New York City at the right time. And because he embraced New York City and really made the education tied to practicality and brought in experts from the market, from New York City's fabric, it helped NYU move ahead. He also saw education becoming globally, well before it did, and he opened a branch in Abu Dhabi, and he opened a branch in Shanghai. So he had a vision, and he was decisive, because no organization is harder to shift than an academic organization where you've got lots of chiefs and lots of good opinions and people that are really good at debating forever and making a decision in an academic thing. But he had the final thing I'll add is he was a great storyteller. And when we met with him, it was hours. But part of successfully shifting ahead is being able to get people to come on the boat with you and say, we're going to do this journey. And he was powerful in getting the inside the company, all his colleagues to believe that in and of the city was the way to go, and then telling that story consistently and intriguingly and powerfully to get people to buy into your vision, because you can't drive change alone. You need a team, and if you're trying something new, they've got to drink the Kool-Aid.
Alan, I want to ask you a question both from the mom and pop level, if you will, a small business, and then a mega company, a Fortune 500. In the book, you talk about Katz's Deli. I'd want to hear about that. And then perhaps you can also give advice from the vantage point of a Fortune 500 company. And I'm referring to companies that are struggling, and they realize they have to shift ahead. And what would your advice be in that type of environment?
Yeah, so we had a great conversation with the current generation running Katz's Deli. And if you know the New York deli market, they're the last deli standing. All the other competitors have gone out of business, but the third generation of Katz's Deli is still there. And we said, so, how are you shifting your business ahead? It looks like the same Katz's Deli I remember when I was growing up in the movie. And the people working behind the counter looked like they'd been there 50 years, and they're talking about how they cut the pastrami. And he said, part of it is, our time has come. What's key now is authenticity, and we've got an authentic story. Mm-hmm. Part of it, he said, is that part of keeping to one location and not franchising and going to Vegas and going everywhere is ensuring that experience, that they have that unique experience where people screaming at each other and getting a number for a table and people standing in line forever to get a sandwich. He wanted to keep that experience, and he knew that if he franchised that, he wouldn't be able to keep it. So the focus on the experience would keep. But he talked about how he's shifting ahead in ways that are behind the scene, behind the curtain, and what's kept Katz's Deli more relevant today than ever is one, as I said, the authenticity, but two is realizing that not everyone can come to Second Avenue and Houston Street in New York. And so the biggest part of his business is not what he sells when you're sitting at a table, but a huge operation in the back, which packs everything up and FedExes it to no matter where you are around the country. So they are shipping, it's a back. The shift ahead on Katz's is not what's happening on the counter or on the table in front of you. The shift ahead at Katz's is the intelligence and the use of technology so that pastrami sandwich can be anywhere in the country.
So it's other
4
verticals.
Hours. Yeah,
right. Other verticals
it's another channel.
Still within their space.
And
it's
using technology, but using the power of technology.
Right, because they got to keep it fresh.
And how do they get that? So he has successfully shifted his business by maintaining an authenticity of the front-end experience, yet unlocking a whole new distribution channel that didn't exist for his father or his grandfather.
So now going to a Fortune 500 company, a major company that we all grew up with, but
one of my favorite brands growing up was, Sony.
Of course,
sure. If I could afford, when I got a Sony camera or a video camera, when I got a Sony TV or a Sony, that was the best. Sony, for those who remember, was the Apple of its day.
That's right.
And so watching Sony go from the top of the mountain to where they ended up was difficult. I had the privilege of working with Sony a couple years back. And, part of what they realized was that they had a clear sense of what Sony should be. When they started the company, it was the founder had a vision, and it's a Japanese word called can-do, but it means giving you goosebumps. And that's sort of what I remember about Sony. When I first touched Sony products, they would give you goosebumps. The sound was so clear, the picture was so good. And over time, they had started to put the Sony name on clock radios, on shower radios, and
everything.
And all of a sudden, you were not getting goosebumps when you touched Sony. So part of Sony's journey to try to come back is to say, look, let's cut the product line. Let's make sure that everything Sony puts his name on gives you goosebumps again. And they're on that journey now, which is focusing more on PlayStation and virtual reality. And whether they make it or not, unclear. But at least, another part of shift ahead success is to focus on what your core relevant differentiation is and brilliantly execute it. Because if you don't,
right. So then
people don't see the strategy, people see the
Radio
execution.
Shack.
Right, exactly.
Where it's not, the concept is there, but the execution wasn't.
Exactly.
If I may put you on the spot, you're running a firm, Metaforce. How do you shift ahead in your own firm?
I think what's keeping us successful to date is a bit of the only the paranoid survive, and realizing that yesterday we had a great year, but yesterday we had a good day, but tomorrow may not be as good. And then embracing people who see the world differently, different perspectives. I try to bring team members on who have different backgrounds, different experiences. So when we look at a problem, we don't all have the same lens. We look at it from multiple perspectives. A little bit of diversity, a little bit of different thinking allows you to better assess, gee, I wonder what they should do, as opposed to everyone having the same background and the same perspective. So the team coming together and then working as a team. So a healthy debate, team of rivals. The Lincoln presidency, where he brought his biggest competitors into the White House to argue with him. That notion of having people at the table who can say no, people at the table who say, no, I see red, you see blue, and having really healthy debate to diagnose because today, a big challenge. I had a privilege of speaking with Tom Friedman when I wrote the book. And one of Tom's things is average is over. And too many marketers do many things averagely. Right. And in today's word of mouth world, no one shares average. Right. People only share extraordinary good or bad. And word of mouth is a new 800-pound gorilla in marketing. Right. And so if you're doing everything averagely, you could have a nice looking website and a nice looking package, and but you won't break through. And so part of why Metaforce looks at the problem is saying we got to figure out what are the 2 or 3 things you're going to do brilliantly, and do them brilliantly. Not what are the 5 things you could do sort of okay.
Such great advice. It's amazing how fast the time flies when we do a radio show. Yeah. I mean, we're roughly a minute and a half left. Alan, before I let you go, you have a world of experience. What final takeaways could you share with the listeners of Mind Your Business?
I'd say the most important thing to keep your business focused ahead is be brave. Okay. Because it's shifting ahead is never easy. Be prepared to stub your toe, but keep on going. And then focus on executing a few things brilliantly, because lots of companies see change coming, but only a few are going to win. And you always think overnight success happens overnight. It usually doesn't. Starbucks didn't happen in 2 days. Uber didn't happen in 2 days. Overnight success doesn't happen. It's the firms that stay focused and strive to win a few things and get it right.
I love the honor of interviewing C-level executives and sharing their great advice and perspective on Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe. You'll never miss an edition of Mind Your Business.